ADA, I was able to get the accommodations that I needed in college. During my 4 years at a local private college, I struggled with how to tell instructors that I have a visual impairment. I was born with a condition called nystagmus. Nystagmus causes rapid involuntary movements of the eye. So I'm legally blind. I did things to get through class as best I could on my own without telling my instructor. So I relied a lot on assistive technology to help me, such as a handheld telescope to see the board or a handheld magnifier to read small print in a book. I would go to class early so I could sit at the front of the class. Once I learned the instructor's habit, I would try to adapt. So, for example, if an instructor liked to write on the left side of the board, I would sit on the left side of the room. If the instructor liked to use the overhead projector to show video, I would copy them at a feverish pace to try and get everything down before they went to the next slide. I would ask others in the class if I could make a copy of their note after class. Sometimes these things worked and sometimes they didn't. Most of the time I would miss something said. It got to the point where I had to take a Western geography class. I've always hated geography the most because it involves maps with little bitty words, wiggly lines, and topographic details that are nearly impossible for me to see with the naked eye. Early on, I approached the instructor and told him that I was legally blind and that I have a very hard time seeing the board. Taking notes and reading maps, the instructor stood back and looked at me with doubt in his eye. He repeated, "Legally blind?" I know that it's hard for him to believe. It's hard for most people to believe until they get to know me and observe how I go about everyday life. You see, I don't use a white cane and I don't have a guide dog. The instructor asked me what I needed. I explained that it would help if I could get a copy of his slides before class. I needed a lot more than that, but I couldn't think of anything else at that moment. The instructor told me that I could get his slides the day before class by contacting him. He would put them on the blackboard for me. When it came time to get the note, they were not on blackboard. I asked the instructor about it. I was told that he did not have time to do anything special for me. If I failed the class, I would just have to retake it. What did he say that for? I don't think so. I was amazed, appalled, hurt, and embarrassed. Did he know what it took for me to muster up enough nerve to come to him for help? Didn't he want his student to succeed? I didn't want to ask for help. I had no choice. Failing was not an option for me. I called my counselor at Michigan Commission for the Blind and told her what was going on. She reminded me that I was supposed to be able to ask for and receive reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I knew about the Americans with Disabilities Act, but I was so used to muddling through. I forgot that a big part of being independent is admitting when you need help and not being ashamed to ask for it. My counselor worked with me along with the Specialized Services Department at the college to set up a note taker. I received a voice-activated tape recorder. I was allowed to take my book to the computer lab and have the maps enlarged free of charge. And I received a copy of the PowerPoints prior to each class. Somehow I felt like the instructor resented having to provide accommodations for me. I don't remember what grade I got. I just remember taking what I learned about asking for accommodations and asserting that into successfully completing future classes all the way to the honor roll and graduation.